Lesson 63, lekutei moharan. Secret meaning of circumcision. The bris covenant, circumcised male organ. Circumcised male organ is called amo in Aramaic, as it is referred to in the Talmud and corresponds to the measurement. Amo of 6 seforim, hand breadths long, with which the covenant encompasses. This corresponds to fiery angels stand around him, which the covenant encompasses. This corresponds to fiery angels stand around him, with 6 wings to each. 6 wings corresponding to the 6 hand breadths. The 6 are divided into 3, as in, with 2 of the wings it conceals its face, with 2 it conceals its legs, and with 2 it flies. The face corresponds to tafach. He struck him on his face. So with 2 it conceals its face, corresponds to 2 tefachim / hand breadths, as in revealing a hand breadth and concealing a hand breadth, which is mentioned regarding the covenant. As our sages said, similarly, with 2 it conceals its legs, corresponds to tafach, him with his sandal, which also corresponds to the above of 2 hand breadths, revealing a hand breadth and concealing a hand breadth. With 2 it flies, corresponds to birds, which were created from mud, as in toif, dripping wets in order, wet enough to wet in something else. All 6 hand breadths are encompassed and set within the covenant, since these 6 hand breadths correspond to the 6 days. And where God made the heavens and the earth, as in, you have made my days like hand breadths, as written in 6 days God made, and on the 7th day he rested. That is all the 6 days. The 6 hand breadths he let all rest on the 7th day, which is Shabbos, which corresponds to the covenant. As written, the Shabbos is a covenant between me and the Israelites. This is alluded to in Bereshis. He created 6, representing the 6 days, the 6 hand breadths, which are all set and encompassed within the covenant. This is also alluded to in Bereshis. Bris, the covenant of fire, which refers to the bris/covenant, which embodies the 6 days, the 6 hand breadths, the 6 wings. So it is called the covenant of fire, corresponding to seforim, fiery angels, with 6 wings, corresponding to the 6 hand breadths. For fire also possesses 6 powers, as the scientists also explain the 6 powers of fire to be softening or hardening, cooking or burning, and blackening or whitening. Similarly, a bird also possesses 6 powers. By flying, it disappears and appears, comes close and goes, etc. The tzaddik represents the covenant, as in the tzaddik is the yesod foundation of the world, embodies the 6 hand breadths, which are divided into the 3 categories. Each of the 3 categories corresponding to revealing a hand breadth and concealing a hand breadth. The tzaddik reveals a hand breadth and conceals a hand breadth regarding himself. Corresponding to it conceals its face. He also reveals and conceals in relation to the world. Corresponding to it conceals its legs. And he reveals and conceals in relation to God. And he reveals and conceals in relation to God. Corresponding to it flies. This is because the tzaddik is sometimes in the category of a revealer to the world, in that he reveals and brings himself close to people, while at other times he's in the category of a concealer, and that he is concealed and hidden from them, making himself very distant from them. And not only does he distance himself from them and elevate himself above them, so that they aren't able to come close to him, but questions and doubts arise about him, to the point that people's minds become distorted and confused on account of this distancing himself from them so much. He is attacked with questions and disbelief. This is the aspect of conceals a hand breadth. This is an aspect of with it conceals its legs. Legs in the sense of drawing, as in all the people who are at your feet, who follow your advice. That is, his drawing people to himself is an aspect of revealing a hand breadth and concealing a hand breadth. For since it is impossible to receive directly from the mind of the tzaddik, therefore he must conceal and dress himself in small things, so that he can reveal himself, so that people will be able to receive from him. This is an aspect of revealing a hand breadth and concealing a hand breadth, and that is concealing and clothing himself is itself an aspect of revealing, since in this way he reveals himself to people, for without this it would be impossible to be revealed to them. but sometimes he is literally in the category of concealing, such as when he conceals, hides distances, and becomes unbelievable to them, such as when he conceals, hides distances, and becomes unbelievable to them. The same is true in relation to God. There must be an aspect of revealing and concealing, for one must bind and bring oneself close to him, as if he were revealed and nearby. However, the more one approaches God, the more one needs to distance oneself. That is, the closer one comes to know how very distant from him one is. For if one thinks and assumes that one has already come close to him and knows everything about him, this is a sign that one knows nothing. For if one knows anything about God, one would know how very distant one is. So the closer one comes to God and knows more, one knows how very distant one is, and that one knows nothing. This is something that is impossible to express verbally or to explain, for God's greatness is beyond imagination. This is alluded to in peace to the far and the near, as in revealing a handbreadth and concealing, etc. For the more one comes closer, the further one is, as said. This is also alluded to it flies. Flies translated by the Targum as serves, representing the concealing a handbreadth and revealing of the service which he serves and devotes himself to God with, to it conceals its face, corresponds to the revealing and concealing of a handbreadth in relation to himself. Face in the sense of anger as written, my face will move on, but also in the sense of appeasement and divine providence as written, may God shine his face towards you. For the tzaddik nanach, nachma meuman. For the tzaddik sometimes accepts suffering. For the tzaddik sometimes accepts suffering. Upon himself. I follow. Meuman. Nanach, nachman, meuman. Nach, nachman, meuman. Oh, Tate. I forward the tzaddik sometimes accepts suffering upon himself. For the sake of the world, it is like an exchange. He exchanges with God the bounty and providence. He does not want this bounty and providence, so he conceals the face of this providence. And accepts suffering upon himself. For he prefers spiritual bounty and providence than bounty that was passed on, is then distributed among the world. This is an aspect of revealing a handbreadth and concealing a handbreadth, in that he sometimes reveals the face of appeasement and providence and conceals the face of anger, while other times he conceals the face of appeasement and providence. The showbread also corresponds to the covenant. And as written, on the Shabbos day he shall arrange the showbread before God, an eternal covenant. And regarding the table upon which the showbread is placed, it says, make a frame for it, and breath high. Therefore that which receives the sigix handbreadths is called a midpaha bachas, shol as written, bring me pachas. For that was Ruth's request, as written, spread your kanaf garment wings upon your maidservant. She requested the wings which correspond to the 6 handbreadths. Therefore Boaz told her, bring them mitpachas. Ayani measured out for her 6 measures of barley, corresponding to the 6 handbreadths, the seyix wings. But there is a serpent with an ant in its mouth. And this ant is certainly not at ease in the serpent's mouth. This serpent sometimes crawls and sometimes flies, and the difference between crawling and flying is that by flying it can fly a long distance in a moment, whereas by crawling it goes along very slowly, as one walking, which is a heavy movement. Now with all the evil speech that people speak, especially when it is against the great tzaddikim, these words create wings for the serpent so that it can fly, while holy speech creates wings of holiness, as in the possessor of wings will tell the word. Evil speech creates wings for the serpent, and these contrapose the 6 wings of holiness. This is because speech emerges from the wings, lobes of the lungs. Therefore wings for the serpent are created from it. Speech comes out of the 6 rings of the windpipe, which correspond to the 6 wings of holiness. The serpent represents the wise to do evil, who study philosophy and here see as written they are wise to do evil, but they know not how to do good, for they know only how to do evil, and even if they wanted to do good, they would not be able. They are in the category of above the serpent, as the serpent was wiser than all the beasts of the field. So with the evil speech one creates wings for these men who are in the category of the serpent, so that they can fly about. That is, their wisdom and hearsay flies and spreads throughout the world and harms the world very much. And with their hair, various studies, they are flying, like someone who has a flying mind, in that their minds fly quickly and their wisdom is wide open before them. But if the serpent has no wings, that is, if the wise men have no evil words, then the serpent can only crawl. That is, these wise men for evil can only study among themselves and cannot fly about in the world. Their wisdom cannot spread and fly throughout the world. They can thus not harm the world, only those who are close to them, such as their students and friends, but at a distance from themselves they cannot harm. This is like someone who walks slowly and cannot move as swiftly as a flying creature. And then even among themselves their minds do not fly. That is, wisdom is not opened to them that much, and they are unable to fly swiftly through their wisdoms. Rather, they must study their wisdom very slowly, like someone walking, and the damage they cause to others with their wisdom is also only in the category of walking, in that it does not fly and enter deeply into the mind of the heart. And enter deeply into the mind and heart, but only sticks loosely to the mind, but does not penetrate deeply into the heart and the mind. However, when they do bezH swings from evil words, then their intellect flies and harms others at a distance. Like a flying creature can fly very far in a short time, also their erroneous wisdom flies, penetrating and binding very deeply to the mind and heart. And this hand that is in the serpent's mouth represents the sage of the generation, nanach, nachman, meuman, who is an upright sage and a tzaddik with good character traits. But since he is a great sage of holiness and studies these wisdoms, when these wise men begin studying their wisdoms, he is greatly pained. Since he is a great sage of holiness and studies and goes into these wisdoms, when these wise men begin studying their wisdoms, he is greatly pained by this and wages great battles with them, that is, with the serpent, for he attacked fiercely. By these confusions, for he is attacked fiercely by these confusions and false beliefs. This is alluded to in an untrustworthy trust, meaning that the sage is overwhelmed by an untrustworthy trust, which is trust that is not perfect and sincere as it should be, which is in the category of false beliefs. This is an untrustworthy trust. This is an untrustworthy trust is like a broken tooth and a dislocated leg. An untrustworthy trust is like a broken tooth and a dislocated leg. That is, this untrustworthy trust is in the category of a broken truth for the sage, who represents the ant that is in the serpent's mouth. Since he is a sage who has entered into God's service, these confusions and false beliefs attack him fiercely, and he must constantly wage with them fierce battle. And no matter whether the serpent is crawling or flying, the sage has great pain and fierce battle, though when it flies. His pain is immensely greater. He has no rest whether it is crawling or flying. But there is a transition between crawling and flying, which is when it stops flapping its wings and descends from its flight, as a flying creature does when it wants to let itself downwards. At this point the ant has a respite, for the serpent is neither crawling nor flying. At this point the ant has a respite, for the serpent is neither crawling nor flying. That is, there are times when these wise men are resting and not studying, such as when they are sleeping or eating. The sage who is in the category of the ant in the serpent's mouth and has a respite. The sage indeed is in the category of an ant, as written, "Go to the ant, O lazy one, observe its ways and become wise, for this sage teaches wisdom and God's ways to the people." This is the secret of what the Saba said. Whoa, is this serpent that flies in the air and crawls separately. In between there is a respite. For an ant that lies between its teeth, this refers to the above serpent. It flies in the air, its flying is by way of the airs, that is by way of the evil speech, from which its wings grow. It crawls separately, that is, it only possesses the power to walk when the wings of holiness are in their proper state, and the serpent lacks wings. From evil speech, it only possesses the ability to walk. This is, it crawls separately, as in their wings were separated above, which are the wings of holiness. When there are wings of holiness, then it crawls. It only possesses the aspect of walking. If the serpent always possesses the ability to walk, the wise men always possess free choice to study as they wish. But they cannot fly. Why? When they lack wings from evil speech, and then they can only walk. In between, that is, during the transition between crawling and flying, which is called in between crawling and flying, the ant that lies between the serpent's teeth has respite. It begins connected, and concludes separated. These wise men who are wise to do evil, who are in the category of the serpents, their wisdom and studies begins connected, meaning that their studies begin with the connected, with the bond between matter and form. Conclude separated means that their wisdom ends with the metaphysical, intellectual entities. That is the way of their studies. They begin with the connection between matter and form and proceed from level to level. First from the matter and form of the physical to the matter and form of the more refined, then to the matter and form of cause and effect. And finally they reach and conclude with the metaphysical, intellectual entities, with their human deductive thought, which is erroneous and faulty. As they acknowledge themselves, they want to deduce from the connection between matter and form an understanding of the metaphysical, intellectual entities. This is, it begins with connection and concludes with separation. Lesson number 64, God said to Moses, go to Paro, for I have your heart in his heart and servants, so that I may show these signs of mine in his midst, and so that you will tell your children and your grandchildren how I made a laughing stock of Egypt, and about my sons that I run in their midst. And you will know that I am God. Tomorrow I will bring locusts within your borders. For when God created the world out of his compassion, he desired to reveal his compassion. And if there will be no world, to whom would he show his compassion? Therefore he created the entire creation, beginning of the world to its sealest, the most central part of the material world, in order to show his compassion. Nanach, nachman.